Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. Bradley's mother, Narkis Golan, passed away 3 months ago. Bradley is autistic and needs structured routine and therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to the Italian Social Services. If he is ruled to go back, he will now face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system where he can't speak or understand the language. He will be taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul and express your concerns to please keep Bradley here in these United States at 518-474-8390. That's 518-474-8390. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. I have a brand new guest on. I have Rael LaPenta. She is from Pennsylvania. She did graduate from St. Joseph's University with a dual certificate in education and special education with a reading specialty. She taught special education for years before training in Texas to be a certified relationship development intervention consultant, which led to her opening up her own practice, behavioral and sensory solutions. And she sees clients and supports their families to manage and treat behavioral concerns. Now she lives in Pennsylvania and she has 3 children. She was the normal mother on the PTA, coaching softball and baseball for her children's teams, volunteering at their school and working book fairs. And she was lucky to be able to work on the weekends so she could be a stay-at-home mom. Her daily life was all devoted to her children, and she loved it. However, in 2019, she moved out of her ex's home and bought a home about only half a mile away. Since then, she's been dealing with custody issues, with approximately 35 petitions filed since May of 2020. Her son and daughter have been withheld from her on several occasions for a variety of time periods, such as holidays, an overnight stay, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and the longest was almost a year. And we're going to talk about custodial interference, which is a really big topic right now because there have been laws on the books that even law enforcement doesn't know about. So I totally welcome you, Rael LaPenta, to my podcast. And how are you doing now?
I'm good. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. This is a very important topic that I think that parents need to understand and know that that's an option for them.
Mm-hmm. Right. And when I interviewed Claudia Ovias, she was saying that there have been laws on the books for, in some states, 40 years old.
At
And
least.
yeah, I don't understand why law enforcement doesn't know about them or how to handle them and just ignore them completely.
I agree. That's definitely something that we've explored. We've asked police officers in personal cases and also in organizations in many different states. And some of the answers we get is that police officers don't feel equipped to get in the middle of a custody agreement, which that is just understanding because there is no getting in the middle if there's a court order. So this law, if there is a law in all 50 states, most states it's a felony. And you have to have a court order signed by a judge that said you're specifically supposed to have a day. So there's no getting in the middle of anything. There's no interpreting or picking a side. But I think that police officers are just misunderstanding the situation. It's word of mouth, I think, that's passed down from the chief. Oh, we don't do this. We just don't. It's civil. But it's misinformation. And they need a policy. So we're finding, too, that a lot of police departments don't even have a policy and procedural manual to tell them what to do. And I just learned recently that police officers seem to not do anything if they don't know exactly what they're supposed to do. In our county, I went with another parent who has an order that specifically says for the sheriff to enforce it. The sheriff is to enforce this custody order, and the sheriff said they don't know what enforce means.
Oh no.
Right.
It's very simple.
That's what I thought. They said for 27 years this has been happening, but they've never spoken to the judge. We asked that. Did you ever hey, do you ever tell the judge that all these orders they're writing aren't working? And they're like, no. So there's just a miscommunication and miseducation for sure, a major one.
I noticed with my case when we had even, the judge's order and you go to pick up the child and the lights are on and no one's home. And this was consistent. And you go to the state police and say, okay, we've got this paper. I'm supposed to see these kids. What they would do is call the DA on call, who would say, you can't get involved. It's a custody hearing. They're in custody hearings. So we just stay out of it. That was the response multiple times.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate because that's not what they're supposed to do. We do advise parents to request the policy and procedural manual. So the Pennsylvania State Police are required to thoroughly investigate any kind of child custody violation report and custodial interference. And nowhere does it say that they're supposed to call the DA and see if the DA will do something about it. So if you had the policy and procedural manual at that time, you could have respectfully, as we always say, this is not, you go very respectfully to the police and say, but how come your policy says that you need to thoroughly investigate this? It doesn't say to call the DA and get the DA's opinion. Your job is to investigate it. So we encourage parents to request the policy and procedural manual for the police department that has jurisdiction over their exchange. Because we found in Pennsylvania, there's a sentencing commission board. You can find information about how many people have been sentenced to a crime. And this law has been enacted since 1972. And to date, I think it's 124 people in Pennsylvania. The whole state of Pennsylvania have been sentenced since 1982, they started documenting the data. So since 1982 for this crime, in San Antonio, there's about 1,000 calls per month for this. Pennsylvania doesn't even document the call. They automatically put it into a domestic disturbance.
Oh, no. Yeah, they've got to. I guess what I thought they would do is when I went to the Pennsylvania State Police, I thought they would say, okay, we got a judge's order. And I said, I think I know where they're at. Can you just go and this is my time to have them? And no, they called the DA on call.
Yeah. No, I mean, at that time, in hindsight, it's 2020, but you could have shown them the policy and then filed an internal affairs report, which makes them accountable for following their policy and procedure.
You see, and I didn't know this, and all this was going on in 2015. So, we're here to educate people that don't know this vital information when you are in a custody hearing. And believe me, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. None of us want to go through this. Why can't people just behave?
Right. Follow the rules. That's what we do. Just follow the rules and do what you're supposed to. That's it. I thought people were going to help. I really did. At first, when I started, I was like, wow, this is horrible and I'm going to get help. And that hasn't been my case.
And, even in my case, well, I don't want to go off track, but I had 2 back-to-back indications of emotional child abuse. And still the judge was letting me see these kids.
Right. I'm shocked that CYS investigated emotional abuse. They've told me that doesn't happen.
When did they tell you that?
A month ago.
A month ago. Because see, we had this rogue caseworker. See, my ex's wife works in the courthouse. So we ended up with this rogue caseworker who indicated me for emotional child abuse.
Wow.
And then another one followed back to back, and I was exonerated from both. But I did ask her, when was the last indication for emotional child abuse filed? And she said 30 years ago.
Wow. I'm surprised there was even any.
Yes. So now they're not even entertaining emotional child abuse.
Yeah, they do not. They absolutely do not.
Interesting. Because with this custodial interference, through coercive control, this parent is inflicting child psychological abuse.
Absolutely. There's so much research and studies done to prove that. Even there are some groups that are really fighting the words parental alienation, saying it's just a legal tactic, which is sort of distracting from the actual problem that these children are being psychologically abused.
Mhm.
They're having, in Pennsylvania, there's a big focus on ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. And they're saying, hey, all these kids are having all these things wrong that are leading to depression and alcohol use and just poor choices in life and
Mhm.
struggles. How can we do this? Not being with a parent is one.
Mhm.
Being cut from a parent, that is the important part.
Right. And with these judges, like I had a weird order that I could see them every other weekend, but not on holidays or Mother's Day, which was kind of
Wow.
that in itself is parental alienation via judge, a
Yeah.
judge's order,
Yeah.
and opposing attorney. There are, and they are actually classified as child abusers in black robes,
Yeah.
which is another topic.
Right.
But this has been going on, and I never knew there were laws on the books. I didn't know what custodial interference was at that time.
Mhm. Right.
And
We're not lawyers or police officers. We do trust those people to tell us what's accurate.
mhm,
And unfortunately, even if they're misinformed, I don't why ever it is, they are not informing you correctly because it is a law. It's a law in every state and a felony.
right. And your attorney should know this if you're lucky enough to
A
somewhat.
family court attorney is like a specialty there. I do think that they should be aware that there is a criminal avenue. I
Mhm,
do think they should advise people. They obviously won't know the laws, the criminal laws. There's so many in Pennsylvania, but family court is the civil route, and they handle things like going to court and getting the custody order and contempt. But there's also a criminal route. And it's that route that you call the police when your car is stolen or someone breaks into your house. You don't need a lawyer for that. You don't get a family attorney.
mhm,
You call the police. They say, okay, here's a crime. They give you an offense report, not an
mhm.
incident report.
Right.
And so you get the offense report and then they investigate it. And you're a victim. You just report the crime as a victim. So there's two avenues that you can go and you can do both at the same time.
Okay, so that's good to know because I didn't know what they were filing. If they were filing an incident report, because as a nurse we filed incident reports. I didn't know
Yeah,
what
you think
police
it
do.
sounds official, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was two different ones.
No. And you're absolutely right. When you file an offense report, this is a criminal issue now.
Right. And they
And
shouldn't have the right to decide what laws to follow or not. This is a felony in Pennsylvania.
right. And then how do you tell a 215-pound, 6'4" state trooper
Yeah,
to
it's intimidating for sure. Like we do suggest to parents to ask now that the police have the body cams, be sure the body cam is on so that you can request that footage later to have it documented, bring someone with you to have a witness. Make
mhm,
sure you request their policy and procedural manual so that you have the exact information.
mhm,
You have your court order, the certified and true copy that you get certified from the courthouse, and you have it highlighted and marked like I'm supposed to have them Monday, at McDonald's, and it's Monday at McDonald's, and they're not here, and I want to report a crime as a victim.
mhm,
And then they'll say it's, ma'am, this is a civil matter, and you can explain that actually it's not. I went to court. I did the civil route. I paid a lawyer and I have a court order that's signed by a judge.
mhm,
So now it's not a civil matter. Now it's a criminal matter. And I want to report a crime of custodial interference. In
mhm,
Pennsylvania, the code is 2904. So I want to report 2904, the penal code interference with child custody, and I want you to create an offense report. If you keep getting denied, then you can also ask for their name and badge number. Make sure you have that information. You can show them the policy and procedural manual and say, how come your policy says you're supposed to thoroughly investigate?
mhm,
And then you go to their supervisor, and then you have to file an internal affairs report, which means that they look into the police officer and make sure he's doing his job. And if he did anything different than what the policy and procedural manual says, then that's an infraction. That's the wrong thing. And then the internal affairs would investigate and handle that piece of it.
Mm-hmm. And not to refer back to my case, but with the CPS involved, I look back now after learning all this and have put it together that this was also custodial interference via CPS.
Absolutely. In your case, it definitely sounds like it was. And the law in Pennsylvania does give grading and specific incidents that would count as an exclusion, like an excuse, I'm sorry, it would count as an excuse or it wouldn't. So like if you're 14, unfortunately, the law right now in Pennsylvania says that you have a little bit of a choice. So if you entice or take a child from the legal custodian who's under 14, would be what is a felony.
Mm-hmm. You know, because parents have said, well, you know, when they hit the age of 14 or 15, they can decide what they want to do. I even asked my lawyer, what is the age? And he didn't have an answer for me.
18 is what being a child. So in the family court, nothing should be about a child until they're 18. That's the law, not 17 and a half, not 16, like 18 exactly on the dot is when. But in the law, there's like sort of an excuse for you not being charged with a felony. So if your child was 15 years old and they wanted to go, not saying it's the right thing, but according to the criminal law, it might not be a felony.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be someone that's not a parent or a parent. It doesn't, it does point that out. So CYS would be, and CYS does get that law enforced often. Mm-hmm. I think more often than probably the normal civilian can.
So when they get it enforced, how do they do it? So if you're supposed to get your kid at a certain time and you could call CYS?
No, I mean, CYS can charge you. CYS can talk to the police and say she's interfering, and then the police are more willing to comply with that.
Oh, yeah, that's just very twisted.
Yes. In Pennsylvania, most of the towns that we haven't gotten there's 67 counties. We have only so far in Pennsylvania been able to find the state police has a policy and procedural manual that it directly instructs them what to do if there's a child custody violation or custodial interference. We just learned recently, we talked to legislators all the time. A representative in Philadelphia had told us that there was a similar problem there about squatters. So there'd be an owner would call and say there's someone squatting, and then the police would go and they'd say, no, I'm allowed to be here. And then the police would say, okay, it's civil. So they said, no, it's not, like someone had to bring that to the legislators' attention, and they say, this is not civil, this is criminal. Who then talked to the attorney general, who gave a directive to the district attorneys, who gave a directive to the police departments and said, this is the policy, you need to look at the deed. And if the deed says their name, they stay. If the deed says it isn't, they get arrested. And now that's what police do. I didn't know that police needed such specific instructions when it came to a law, but it seems like they do. So that's a really important piece. Then everybody needs to talk to their district attorney too, and their try to get a contact with the attorney general and say, why isn't my police enforcing this?
Mm-hmm. And even like the sheriff's office, I'm hearing they're not doing anything either.
They don't know what the word enforce means, they said. Last week, they told me they do not know what enforce means. So they probably don't have, I'm waiting right now. We make a lot of requests through the Federal Open Records Request Act. So the right to know in Pennsylvania. So I did put that in maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm waiting to see if the sheriff has a policy, which I'm assuming they do not.
These judges are writing orders for you to see your child. And it just amazes me that, well, of course, we're dealing with personality disorders that want to make you miserable, and they're using these kids just as pawns to do so. And like you said, parental alienation is a term. It is real. It is being actually, abused in the courtrooms by these abusive individuals to soothe their broken egos. So they're using that as a crutch to fall back on, and then they're psychologically abusing your child at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that too is a crime, but they're not doing anything with that either.
No. No, a lot of the states too don't have a definition for that. So there's definitions for physical abuse and sexual abuse. And then, in Pennsylvania, the definition is severe emotional trauma that it would impede their developmental daily skills. So if your child, I'm assuming, was like sitting in a corner rocking, or, couldn't read because they were so traumatized, then they would consider emotional abuse. But I mean, we know so much more than that now. I don't understand how it's not obvious to a lot of people.
No, and a lot of parents are, helpless. Even, I've been telling parents about this custodial interference and what to do and to file the offense report,
Right.
and still nothing is being done. And it's gonna, how long is this going to take till it is being used, being recognized?
Yeah. I mean, the numbers are going up. So, we've been working, and I work with Claudia, and she's been working in Texas, and she's like about a year ahead of us here in Pennsylvania, because, I saw what she was doing and I said, that's working. I want to do exactly that. And that's what we do. And it does work. And so there are probably 24 bills filed in Texas this session. And we're on the same path here in Pennsylvania, but it wouldn't be now. It's not an immediate fix. It does take some time. We got a couple things going in Pennsylvania, but some of the bills that we're asking for here are like, there'll be a ticket given where the police goes out, there's a custodial interference complaint, and they give them a citation for like up to $500, where the police said they would sort of be willing to do that. And then at the third ticket for keeping your kids and interfering, then the district attorney would prosecute. So it's not a perfect quick fix, but it is some kind of reason to not withhold a child. There also have a bill that was filed that if you are kept away from your children during your time, you absolutely get makeup time. So you shall get makeup time, even if there is a CYS investigation. During that time, if you are found not guilty of that, then you get that makeup time during the investigation. The district attorney gets, is right now, there's a bill that says if the district attorney doesn't prosecute the charges that come across his desk, he could be fined up to $1,000 per day and then fired at the end of the week. If those kind of things were in place, laws would get followed. Bottom line. I mean, if that was a threat, it wouldn't be the DA's decision on call to make any decisions. It was that he had to follow the law. So those things are done in Texas. They're written. That stuff is laid, and we're working to do things in Pennsylvania that are either similar to that. We offer all those options. So all those things are right now happening. The statute of limitations is being removed in one of the bills. There's just so many things that seem like it's laying the groundwork for us.
As far as removing the statutes of limitation, so if a parent's case is over by 1 year and they've totally missed out on so many milestones of their children growing up because this other parent was interfering in this visitation time, they can sue and go after.
No, suing would be civil.
Right.
So I guess you could, I don't really know. That's not my wheelhouse, but you could probably do a civil for whatever emotional stuff, but you could then tell the police there was a crime. So if you were like sexually assaulted, there's no statute of limitation. So I could call today and say, if I was, God forbid, sexually assaulted 6 years ago, I could still report the crime and they would investigate it. So that's what it means by taking the state statute of limitations. Right now, to report a felony, it's 5 years. So, you could call today and say, 4 years ago, my custody was interfered with, and it's your responsibility to investigate that. But it's only up to 5 years. And the reason they made that bill is a really interesting story. Is there was a father that kidnapped a baby. I want to say she was, maybe 8 months old, around there, took her to Mexico, and they haven't been able to find her since. They found her. I think she's somewhere in her 20s, early 20s. They finally found her, and it's in Texas, and Texas said there's nothing they can do because the statute of limitations ran out.
Mm.
And so he's kidnapped her essentially, and they're still not enforcing it. So, that would be a situation where if there was no statute of limitations, there would be accountability. If there was any reason for another parent to not keep a child at all, a possible consequence, the numbers would be so much less.
Well, I always thought it was a felony anyway to take a child to another. Now this is another country or even another state. I thought it was as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it is. But sometimes it gets grouped in this, it's a civil matter, and it gets put off and ignored, especially if parents don't know. I mean, we meet hundreds and thousands of parents that say, but the police said it's civil. And then when we say, but where does it say that it's civil? Because it does not say that. So maybe they want it to be civil, maybe, but it's not. That's the bottom line. You might not agree with it, but that's the way it is. And it's for a reason. In Pennsylvania, in 1984 was the last time that they amended this law, and it was enacted in 1972. So 1984, they said that parental snatching, and they defined snatching, is a huge problem. It was a huge problem in 1984, and that's why they made this law, because it's not okay. It's against the law. It's damaging to the children. They knew that. Legislation knows that, and that's why this law was in place. So, and now today, I want to say the stats last year might have been 90% of all kidnappings happen from the parent. And then the thing, if they could stop this interference. So you take the kid for 4 hours one time, nothing happens. You take them for an overnight, nothing happens. You take them, just like my case, 4 weeks, then 6 weeks, then a year. The next time's going to be even more. And then it leads to things like taking them out of state, where then, or out of the country. I mean, international abduction happens all the time. So these are serious problems. In Pennsylvania, the case with Caden Mancuso, who then had the Cadence law. It's such a tragic case, but that mother tried to get custodial interference enforced several times. That could have prevented her death if you look at it like that. That's why this law is in place, and it's really unacceptable that people aren't enforcing it. So our mission is to just tell as many people as we can. That's it. Just the more people know, the better. Know your rights as a parent. You don't have to just accept what they say. I don't suggest fighting with police officers or, being disrespectful, but question it. I question everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah. After being through this, you do.
Yeah.
You just, there's a lack of trust.
Yeah.
With in these court systems, because they just don't. They're making up the laws as they go along.
Yeah.
And when they hold a parent in contempt, say, you've proved custodial interference in the courtroom, and the judge will say, well, you're in contempt, but then he'll start talking about something else. It's just not.
Well, they wouldn't do family court. It is. I find it tricky, but it's important to know the difference. So if you go to a family court and say, hey, he committed a crime, they're not going to do anything. Just like if you went and said, hey, my car was stolen, they're not going to do anything in family court. That's not their job. Criminal court is where they would do that. So even trying to get that. So knowing what consequences are for what rules in what court is important. And they definitely don't share that information. I don't understand why they don't clarify. A family court attorney really should know. They might not agree with it, but they should tell you your rights, that there's a civil route and that's what they'll help you with. And there's also a criminal route, and that they can't help you, but you can go ahead and figure it out. At least you would know to keep searching for more information.
Or do you think they just want to keep you going around in circles to drag out the case?
Oh, of course, that's a factor,
you know?
and all the attorneys that we've talked to, the family court attorneys say, well, criminal doesn't do anything if you try, which is a lot of the times the case, but it doesn't mean it's not possible.
Mhm,
It's not easy, but it happens, and it's happening more and more and more. In the past few months alone, there's been, a dramatic increase in sentencing in every state across the nation. So it's knowing your rights. If you can push for your rights. And we always tell people, be the most polite pain in the butt you can be.
mhm, mhm,
Don't give up. If they say no, it doesn't mean try another police officer.
mhm.
Go to the chief, call again the next day. Don't give up for sure if you know that those are your rights.
Oh, definitely. You have to be persistent
Yes.
politely
Yes.
and can't go in there with an an attitude, you know.
Which is hard because you know that you're probably going to leave without your child, and that's
Mhm,
devastating. And you do feel so hopeless. And I'm so grateful that I came into doing all this kind of work, because this situation feels hopeless and I felt so helpless, which could then be so triggering,
mhm,
where you would then immediately get disrespectful, maybe not even realize it because you're so dysregulated and so injured.
mhm.
So having a purpose through that pain is really helpful, and being aware that it's necessary to get yourself, have self-care, do what you need to do to take care of yourself so that you can then advocate for your rights.
Mhm. And also, it's it's very problematic when grandparents get involved and are also committing custodial interference
Hmm. Yeah.
and hiding the kids.
Yeah. Well, concealment of a child is another
Oh,
law in Pennsylvania, just like false allegations are. Those are all laws. In Pennsylvania, it's illegal to do. And just because the first police officer might not enforce that law doesn't mean it's not a law. And there is a way to get it enforced. It might just take longer. But absolutely, people, I'm not really sure why there's so many people that get involved in helping conceal and cut off children from their other parent.
mhm,
It, I can't, there's nothing I can say to explain that. I don't, it's unacceptable, obviously, but it
mhm,
happens.
mhm.
It's not okay.
Yeah, and also they've got to be held accountable. These sheriffs, these policemen,
Hmm.
and like you had said in the very beginning, file the internal affairs report on them.
Yeah,
But still, you're wasting precious time and
exactly.
allowing this parent to even do it more
Yeah,
and
you're
more
okay.
often.
Absolutely. The fact that it doesn't get dealt with immediately criminally as it should and it's supposed to is absolutely the okay to continue doing it.
Hmm,
And until the police understand that, or at least just follow the law, it's going to keep happening like that.
hmm. Yeah, very frustrating. You know, these laws that you have mentioned, how fast are they moving? Will they get to the state police? Will they get to the sheriff's department and say, hey, this is what should be happening?
Yeah, these have been laws. These aren't new laws.
Right.
They're not bills. They've been laws.
Right. Or
Right?
amended since they've been amended. Shouldn't they
Yeah.
be uh should people be going there and I don't know, teaching them about this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's one piece. So we go a few different routes. Like
Mhm,
that's just, this is the problem, and we say, okay, how can we get to it? So one avenue is we are so the police training is like very specific, obviously, and just know, like, anybody off the street can't just do it. You can request a meeting with the chief of police and
mhm,
see if they're open to hearing it. Maybe yours is, I don't know, but we do help parents that
mhm,
want to start making a change. So we have a group in Pennsylvania. I actually help any state that wants to do this. So we have a few states now that have a group of parents, and we sort of help walk them through and hold their hand through. It can be
yeah.
very intimidating.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
what is a right to know document? How do you request a meeting? And
Mhm,
meeting with legislators seemed so intimidating at
mhm,
first. It was amazing to me recently, Senator Hughes's district. If anybody's in Senator Hughes's district, um, he said it's not a problem. Custodial interference is not a problem in his district. And I said, it's definitely a problem. And he said, but no one's ever told me about it.
mm,
So you have to think, why would someone fix something if they don't know it's broke? So it's our responsibility to let them know that this is broken. We meet with legislators all the time, and we're happy to jump on Zooms if parents, we give out templates and suggestions on how to request meetings, virtual meetings, and how to talk to them, and the facts. We have so much data from, Pennsylvania and all the states about the things that need to happen. This stuff has been documented for years and years by the Department of State, the Justice Department. It's been documented for decades. People just haven't shared it, and I don't know what that breakdown was, but we do try to be the piece of like, this is the information here, like, and bringing it to who it needs to go to.
Or parents are just, like you said, intimidated or just scared, or maybe they've been threatened by the judge that if you keep talking about this or whatever, they just won't do anything. They're just too scared.
I was ordered, our cases, we're not allowed to call the police anymore.
See, that's not right.
It's a real fear to have, right? It's a real fear that people have, that you might have unfortunate, inappropriate, like incorrect responses for doing the right thing. But something like reporting a crime, at least for me, is not, I feel like, in the same thing with family court. So it's sort of like two different realms, but it's intimidating to have an internal affairs, and you're tattling, you feel like, saying snitches get stitches.
Oh.
Everybody believes that, but
if people would just do the right thing and do their job and realize this is about the kids,
right,
and not getting even with the other parent,
exactly,
everyone would have a happier life.
Right. And if you feel confident that what you're doing is in your child's best interest, and I am very confident that that is in my child's best interest, it's easier to, especially if you have a procedure and someone there being like, this is the way I said it, or, have a group that's involved that can help support you there.
Yeah, I think it's important to have groups and to learn what you should be doing, and to take people with you and record.
Yes.
And that's a big thing, is recording everything. And, if the DA is not going to do their job, let's say they just don't do their job, and who's above them is the thing.
It's unfortunate it doesn't seem like there's accountability for them. So in Delaware County, for example, the district attorney wants to run for attorney general. So for us, this is a great opportunity. We got this information from our county council that we met with, because we meet with everyone and anyone, because you never know where it is. There's all kinds of councils and committees that I didn't even know about, that have a lot more power than you would think. So she had said that he's running for attorney general. This is probably a very good time for you to make some noise. So with some persistence, and he's not happy about it, we do have a meeting with the district attorney finally in Delaware County next week. And that just takes a group of parents. So, it's overwhelming for one parent to do it. The more people that are there, you get an email here, an email there. It's just harder to ignore a big group of people that are saying, this is really a problem for us. It's not just my case. We don't go in and say, this happened to me and boo-hoo about me. It's about the fact that these are the numbers. This is a problem for everyone.
And if this was addressed correctly, we probably wouldn't have a lot of problems with parental alienation. And
it would be a huge first step. Yeah, it would be absolutely. It would say to this parent, hey, wait a minute. I'm not allowed to do that. It would be a reason to, for sure. This is the first year. Well, we have a Facebook page that we're very active in, and we always are doing free workshops on the weekends or during the week with either individual states or as a whole, and help parents learn how to enforce custodial interference, as well as how to legislate, ways to contact legislators or that. So we're really excited. On April 8th, we are having the first Custodial Interference Awareness Day. So we're doing a big event. We'll be on Facebook Live for hours. And we are, for the first time, interviewing all types of people that are affected by custodial interference.
Mhm.
So detectives, legislators, parents, people who eventually had international abductions, police officers, every route of it are, they'll be interviewed on there, and we have a big awareness campaign. So
Mhm.
instead of putting like a light bulb out, which is important for awareness, but what we need in this case is not just people to know, but to people to say something to someone that matters. So we're going to be offering a template, which says like an email. You just copy and paste. That's all you have to do is copy and paste. And we're asking everyone on April 8th to email, and we'll have a list of that too. District attorneys, police departments, police officers, your legislator, state senator, House representatives. We'll have a whole list. Just please email the template that says custodial interference is a problem, those things. And then we're going to have like a winner. NPO has agreed to donate the book, Science and Law about parental alienation, which is an amazing textbook. It has case law specific to each state. And, it's a really great one. So that'll be a prize to the person who sends the most emails of awareness.
Oh, that'll be me. That's
Yeah,
me.
good. I hope you're right. Come, because I mean that's like $100 textbook, and it's such an amazing resource. And also whoever sends the most emails, we're going to concentrate in that area. So whatever town you're in, we'll sort of also bombard them, and that's just the way we have to get this done. People
Mhm.
have to understand this isn't being enforced.
Mhm.
So we're really excited about that big event, and we're hoping that Monday morning everybody comes in and their mailboxes are overloaded
Right.
with custodial interference information.
So where is that Facebook page that people can find?
It's facebook.com/enforce, ENFORCE, capital I C, capital C, capital C. So enforce ICC for interference with child custody. And then under the groups tab, we have individual state pages. So
Mhm.
there is a Pennsylvania 2904 interference with child custody specific page that people can go on and ask specific questions about Pennsylvania.
Mhm. Oh, that's excellent. Because after I interviewed Claudia Ovias, I had a couple parents contacting me, and I had to contact her to find out where I can direct these people.
Right. Yeah. It's a big website. I mean, a big Facebook now. We're starting in some TikTok stuff. We're not really the TikToker age.
Yeah.
It's not really our realm. Facebook is our realm, but we know that people are there, and the information has to get out.
Mhm.
So that's what we do. Our lives are really devoted. I mean, we talk daily. Everybody in our group does. We just, want to get this fixed. We want to get it
Mhm.
enforced. We want to keep our children safe. This is what's supposed to happen. This law's on the books. That's what we need to get done. So, we're also meeting with legislators and asking them to file bills, which we've had success with. We're meeting with some attorneys next week to draft some things to file in Pennsylvania too. So,
Oh, that's
any
great.
parents that want to get involved, we would love to help. It just helps us get it out more and helps us do this faster,
Mhm.
you know.
Oh, I agree. I agree,
Yeah.
because once this gets solved and it's in motion,
Yeah.
then we will probably see less parents and children even in therapy.
Yeah, I'm sure. Right. There'll be less ACEs. There's so many
Yeah.
benefits. It seems so obvious. Um, I'm not really sure why it's not, but it doesn't matter why it's not. The bottom
Mhm.
line is it's supposed to be enforced.
I'm so glad you came on. Is there anything else you'd like to add or give advice to a parent that's having their children withheld?
Yeah. I would say the first thing is reach out and get help for yourself, either a therapy or like online support groups. That's how I started. And I just use them as that crutch, and I go and I let those feelings out. And I understand this is grief. I mean, you have to deal with the grief and the trauma because you can't think clearly if you're too hurt,
Right. Right.
so get help for yourself, say this is a problem, and then keep moving.
Mhm. Definitely. And how can you be reached if a parent has a question?
So they can go through the Facebook page if they want to message on the Interference with Child Custody Coalition, which is like IC3, or they can email me directly. My email is solvingproblemstogether123@gmail.com.
Oh, I thank you for coming on and
Yeah, thank you.
informing us about this, that, we all should have known this to begin with. It was
Yeah,
always there, but
it
just
was.
never enforced
Right.
because
Right.
they don't know how to enforce it.
Yeah. That word enforce.
It shouldn't be that scary of a word. Just do it.
Right. Exactly. There shouldn't be. It's that sheriff had said, well, he has got to tell me what the judge has to tell me what to do if the dad shuts the door in my face. But aren't we train police officers to figure that piece out, right? Like
Yeah.
other laws don't do that.
Yeah. He's not going to call a judge and get an answer right away. You know how long that's going to take.
Right. Right. I mean, you can figure that's why police officers are trained is to make a judgment call in that situation.
Right.
You know,
Oh, goodness.
a
Goodness.
parent recently in Philadelphia did get this law enforced, and the investigator said, I don't know how to investigate this.
Mm-hmm.
Investigate it like any crime, just like all the other crimes. Like this is not a big question. This is a crime. That's
Right.
it.
Well, thank you for all your information. I'd like to have you back on,
Yeah.
with any progress or anything you would like to talk about again. I would love to have you back on.
Great. Thank you so much.
Well, don't jump off.
Yeah.
Slamming Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in the family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here in the future with Rael LaPenta from Pennsylvania in the future and other exciting guests. Thank you so much.